Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons to using a brake drum forge versus buying a commercially produced coal forge. Now, I'll go ahead and start by saying this. If you are an absolute rank beginner or you don't really know whether you want to take and get into this trade, if you will, or a hobby, or do this really full-time as a hobby, or really invest the big bucks in buying a professional forge, you can discount everything I say about basically buying a professional forge at that point in time. This is a great entry-level economical way for you to get started in the craft and the art of blacksmithing. So I'm not knocking these forges in that respect, but I'm going to talk about some of the difficulties you will have using a brake drum forge. So years ago, when I first started into blacksmithing, well over a decade ago, I really wanted to take and get a forge made, a coal forge, and just start with that. And I had read in a book that I could do it with a brake drum, right? This kind of brake drum forge. I could build my own little coal forge, and there you go, be up and running. Well, just so happens I couldn't find any brake drums or anybody who wanted to sell me any, and before I got too deep into that deep dive, Jessica actually lucked out, and it was a true blessing, on the forge that I use every day, which is a professionally produced forge. Now, this forge is, you know, a couple hundred years old now, and so, I mean, it's a really old forge. I don't know if it's a couple hundred, that might be a lie. I haven't checked the time frame on it. But anyways, back on point here. So I lucked out. I lucked out when I was first getting started to get a really good quality made forge to start with in my career and in the hobby. So I never did have to go the brake drum route. Now I have seen other guys, I have used brake drum forges, and I've seen a lot of people struggle with them. And here's why. The reason why most people struggle with a brake drum forge is the volume here. You do not need a fire pot that is that big. It is huge. In fact, I'll show you the differences between a professionally made forge here in a second, and you'll see what I'm talking about. This volume is huge. Not only does this eat you out of house and home when it comes to all your fuel, most likely you'll be starting with charcoal or anthracite or something of the like, and you're just going to be burning through tons of this stuff, getting this whole fire pot here super hot when it's not needed. That can be a downside, especially when you're just beginning, because it can become very uneconomical really quick, especially if you're buying your coal online. So usually this is set in a, you've all seen it, it's set in a top. It's usually got a sheet metal top. This becomes the actual fire pot itself, and then there's usually a pipe with maybe some welded bars across the top of it, and that's it. So it's real basic, really easy to assemble, but this is a bad use of this type of brake drum. These are huge, and they have way too much volume for what you need as a hobbyist and things like that. And they're just not constructed the right way to produce a really nice forge fire. They will heat steel, but they'll eat you out of house and home. So I'll get rid of that one. This, if you're going to build a brake drum forge, this is something that you should look for. Now this is a rotor. It's a brake rotor instead of a drum. And this brake rotor is made out of drop forged steel. Now this is better than the cast steel brake drums. Now different manufacturers will make them differently, but that's not the point in their materials. But this here you can see already has a much more acceptable fire pot size. This fire pot size will heat anything up to hammer size, say 2-inch in diameter bar stock with a fire pot size this deep. Because again, you're going to be building coke on top of this and setting your material up there. But the fire pot itself does not need to be huge. This is a much better option if you're going to use just a straight up brake drum, or brake rotor in this case, as your fire pot with nothing else. So now we're going to go over to the my forge, and I'm going to show you the fire pot in it, and you'll see some real clear differences. So here's my forge. As you can see, this has a pretty deep fire pot, but it is not this exact cross section all the way down. In fact, it slopes all the way down in a pyramid to a point where the actual air blast is coming up through. This has multiple advantages, clearly. One, the volume is not the same all the way across, and so therefore this is a small fire. It still eats up only the amount of coal that is needed to really heat up larger pieces of material. Now this forge, I've heated everything from big hammer billets as large as a 30-pound billet of steel before in this forge. Now that was maxing it out, and the coke was clear up here, and the fire was huge, and things like that. So you could see that a good deep fire pot is good, but it needs to be in a bit of a diamond shape, if you will, or a pyramid shape. Now the advantages to a professional made forge. One is that the fact that because of these sloping sides, they're going to constantly shift new material to the center or the hottest portion of the fire where most of the air blast is coming up through. That is a huge advantage versus something that's just flat across the bottom. You'll have dead areas to the left and the right that aren't getting any sort of air coming through them. So what can you do with a brake drum forge to improve it? So say you have like the first type of brake drum forge. Well, you can take and put in or build in with clay in these banks right here. And you will get a much more usable fire pot that way that'll burn less fuel but still be able to heat up your material and your work that you need without having this big gigantic fire going on top of your forge, eating up all your fuel and resources. So, you know, that's kind of the real principal difference where most homemade forges end up failing, is that they use a very flat trajectory bottom of a fire pot. They use too big of a fire pot to start, and it's very hard to control your fire. And that's one of the biggest things that is difficult for most people is fire maintenance when you first get started in this. So having a proper tool can help you with that to begin with proper fire maintenance. It's not a necessity, but it sure is nice. Now, forges have really went up there like crazy in the years that I've been doing this. So a good professionally manufactured today forge will cost you anywhere in the realm of about $600 to about $1,200. And as you can see, that's just out of most people's price point. And I can totally understand that. It definitely would have been out of my price point to begin with. But if you can find a brake rotor like this, you can be in business. Again, this has about the same amount of volume as what this has here, or surface area. Versus this has about 3 times the amount of volume as what this does. If I were to set that in there, that thing's just huge. You can see the difference already, hopefully. Hopefully that's becoming apparent to you. That thing is huge. It's got a huge hole in the center of it. It's blowing crazy amounts of air. It has no direction to put the flames, and so therefore it makes the fire fairly uncontrollable. So you can weld in plates to make it banked up, which kind of, you know, makes a brake drum forge kind of pointless if you're going to weld in plates. Or the easiest option, like I said, is get clay and pack in clay, fire clay or fire bricks in that bigger void to really choke it down so you're not having to keep such a large fire to heat, you know, fairly small items when you first get started. So that's it for today. Let me know if you've got a brake drum forge down in the comment section down below, or what your forging setup is. I would love to hear about that and hear from you. And also put some of your struggles or some of your triumphs that you've had. I may make another video addressing some problems or issues if you guys have those, to where maybe I can help you out. If you like this video, remember to give it a like. If you disliked it, that thumbs down is always the option. As always, if you would like to take and support what I do here on this channel, what Jessica and I do in producing educational content, consider supporting us through buying a power hammer plan or a blacksmith cheat sheet or something along those lines over at blacksmithpdfs.com. That's a great way of supporting the channel and getting some drawings and plans and things to be able to build your own power hammers and coal forges and things like that. So I'll put the links to that in the description. And always, God bless y'all. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.